Okay, 30 minutes of bench rest is up. As you can see, they have flattened out a little bit, and I have gotten out my proofing baskets. They're called bannetons. You can order these if you want to use something like this. This is a traditional kind of proofing basket. You can use bread pans like this if you prefer, or a regular loaf. But it doesn't bake up the same. You can use silicone. These give you a more traditional loaf of bread. And while you can bake sourdough bread in those containers, it just doesn't look like a rustic loaf of sourdough. I'm going to use my bannetons, and I've already sprinkled some rice flour in these three, and I'm just going to do this one to demonstrate. Basically, that's regular flour. That's a mistake. I don't use regular flour in these. I used to use regular flour, and almost every time it stuck. When I tried to flip out the loaf into the Dutch oven to bake it, almost invariably it stuck to the basket when I used regular flour. When I started using rice flour, which is a different consistency altogether, they turned out without any sticking or a problem whatsoever. I wish somebody had told me about this a long time ago. It's just been the past few months that I figured out rice flour is the thing to use. So, after you have floured your bannetons or your proofing baskets, however you want to look at it, then if you're not going to use proofing baskets, then you will need to take your regular bread loaf pan and either spray it or wipe it down with butter or something to keep it from sticking, because this is a very high water content dough, 75% water, so it's very sticky even up to the time when you're getting ready to bake it. So there's a little difference in what you do after when you get ready to do this part. You don't want any big air bubbles in it, but you don't want to treat it rough either. So you sprinkle the top with the regular flour, because you want to fold it, but you want to keep this side nice and keep the top side nice and flat. So you turn it over. This side's pretty sticky, so you grab it, pull, fold it, turn it, grab it, pull, fold it, pull and fold it, all four sides, just like we did when we pre-molded. Then you begin to create the surface tension for the final rise. And how you do that is that you, again, use your hands to push the top under as you turn it, and then hold and pull. As you can see, it makes the top become a little more tight or taut. You don't want to break the surface, but you do want to form the top so it's tight. What I'm going to do next is lightly flour the top. I'm going to flip it over on my hand and then place it top down in a basket. Just like that. So it sits in the basket and then it does its final rise. So I will do the other three. Same way. Stretch, fold over, stretch, fold over, stretch, fold over, stretch, fold over. As you can see the air bubble there. You don't want any big air bubbles in it. They'll have enough air bubbles inside when it does its final rise. So you turn as you tuck the sides in, and then once you get to that point where you feel like it's kind of tight on top, you want to hold it and pull it toward you. Turn it a little, hold it, pull it toward you. And as you will see the top getting a little tighter as you do that. A little flour, and then turn it, place it face top down in the basket, and do the next one. These make small loaves, relatively speaking, but you can do this recipe and make 2 larger loaves if you like. Once you feel it starting to get a little tacky on the edges, that's when you want to go ahead and pull it. Turn it a quarter turn, pull it. And do your final turns. A little flour on top. Place it in the basket. And the last one. Pull tight. Top gets fairly tight. Then you have and if you notice the big air bubbles forming, it's okay to pinch them down. You don't want big giant air bubbles forming. Now, At this stage, dust a little on top. And if you were using regular loaf pans, you would still do a little dusting on top with flour. Because this, in this case, this will become the bottom. If you're doing it, if you're letting it proof in a regular loaf pan, a little bit of flour on top is just a precaution, so as it'll kind of hold the moisture in. At this point, whether it's in a proofing basket or in a regular loaf pan, you want to refrigerate it overnight. I'm going to take these, put them in a refrigerator. I have one out in the garage. If you don't have an extra refrigerator, you'll have to make room in your refrigerator for either the 2 loaf pans or the 4 if you're making smaller loaves. So the reason for that is that the sourdough flavor comes not from the wild yeast, but it comes from certain bacteria that grow faster in the cold. While the cold will keep the yeast from rising too fast while it develops its sourdough flavor. In the refrigerator, for the proofing final rise, it allows that bacteria to grow, so it gives you that flavor. You can leave this out on the counter covered with a linen towel or an old diaper like I use, clean diaper. And about 4 hours from now you could bake. But the sourdough flavor is not quite as strong, or that hasn't developed as much if you don't let it have a cool rise overnight in the refrigerator. So what I'm going to do is put this in the refrigerator and let it rise overnight. It won't rise much overnight, but I'll take it out of the refrigerator in the morning, finish the video, and show you how it looks before you bake and during the bake and after the bake. So here we are at this stage. I'm going to put these in the refrigerator, cover them with plastic so they won't dry out, and because a refrigerator is good to dry things out. I will cover this with plastic to avoid that, and bring them out in the morning, and we'll finish up and prepare for baking.